Berserk is one of those series that'll go down in history as one of the greatest. Kentaro Miura is the late great artist who created this dark, gore-filled fantasy and started a wave of other series who followed in its path. And without its success, we might not have gotten series like Black Clover, Hellsing Ultimate, or even Attack on Titan. So for Berserk to be this popular series, I thought it only made sense that the games would be good too. And since we already talk about Warriors games so often, we might as well see what's up with Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. This is another musou game created by Omega Force that released in 2016. And it covers a really big part of the series. Compared to the original anime from the 90s and the 2016 remake, this one gets even farther than both of them. Now, is this gonna be the best way to experience Berserk? Absolutely not. You still gotta go back and read that manga because nothing compares to Kentaro Miura's art style. Just by looking at the way that he detailed and shaded every panel just shows how dedicated he was to the series. Plus, this game uses a lot of cutscenes that are ripped straight from the 3 Berserk Golden Age movies. Now personally, I only watched the 90s anime because everyone kept telling me to steer clear of the 2016 anime, and I absolutely did. So at first, I was thinking that these scenes were from the 2016 remake, but thank goodness it wasn't. But I still don't know how to feel about them adding these because it feels a little bit lazy at times. They use it to fill in gaps where there's more action taking place, so it probably helped them to stay in their budget. But it still would have been nice to have more in-game cutscenes during that whole arc. And obviously all the events after the movie are animated in games, so you'll be seeing a lot more talking scenes and not as much action. But I'm not even joking when I say that one of those movie scenes played for 15 minutes straight. Like I was sitting there the whole time feeling like I was watching a whole anime episode. But when we do get to see the in-game models, they look so much better than they do in the movies. Specifically with Casca because they stripped away all of her melanin in those movies. It's like the people from Genshin Impact got their hands on it and said that she was just 2 shades too dark. But even for Guts and Griffith, the models look closer to what you'd expect from the OG anime, and it looks a lot better. The sharp features in the 90s anime style oozes from so many of those characters, and I love it. But when we get into the story mode, as far as the gameplay goes, it started to get stale very quickly. But hear me out though, because that's kinda the point. I know people hate on the musou games because they think it's really repetitive and it doesn't really change too much. And as somebody who loves playing musou games, I don't always feel that way. But where it can get repetitive is in some games where you're forced to use a few characters. So in the One Piece Warriors games, you'd expect to play as Luffy or some of the Straw Hats through most of the story mode. It makes total sense and I can't really be mad about that. So when we take a look back at Band of the Hawk, you can kinda guess where the problem comes in. During the first couple chapters, they do allow you to play as other characters like Casca, Griffith, and Judo. So I was able to play as them at least once on a few different story quests. But after a while, the story really focused on Guts, and for more than half of the campaign, you're basically stuck with him. And again, that's not really a shock, especially after knowing what happens deeper into the story. But playing as the same character in a musou game for hours can be a huge pain in the ass. Guts has a few swords and outfits he can use, with the combos on each one basically being the same. He does get a new death blow after he unlocks Dragon Slayer, but for the most part, Guts is Guts. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the slower characters in these games. So to play as this powerful and sluggish character for hours straight just felt kinda bad to me. And I wouldn't say it's dumb that they force you to use him since he tends to be the only character in a lot of these fights. But I'd much rather play as somebody faster like Casca whenever I could get the chance. But I will say that he does get more fun to play when he unlocks his Berserker armor, but that's still not until the last hour of the story. That armor lets him activate his Berserker form and changes his entire moveset to be much faster. And the funny part is, as soon as I unlocked that, Guts became my favorite character to play as just for his Berserker form. But that's not really saying too much since there's not a lot of characters here to begin with. The size of this roster is one of the smallest I've ever seen in a musou game. Just from finishing the story, you end up with a whopping 7 characters that you can play as. And yeah, there is another character that's locked behind the Endless Eclipse mode, but only having 8 characters is abysmal compared to every other Warriors game I've ever played. Like, yeah, technically some characters have transformations and different moves depending on their costumes, but it doesn't change enough to add real value. Now, if they did add characters like Skull Knight or even the Bishop, that would be cool, but they only gave us a handful of heroes and some villains that we see early on. So just by that alone, it's sounding like you might be better off skipping this if you wanted to have a more packed roster to mess around with. And after the story mode is all said and done, there's still one more mode, but even then it's not really too special. In the Endless Eclipse, you can choose to play as any character that you want to. The main goal is to fight through enemies and clear missions to make it to the final levels of the Eclipse. There's not too much to say about it since it's more of the gameplay that you've seen in the main story. Like, it's cool if you want to do it to grind for money and items, but it might not matter if you're not trying to max out your gear. The main reason you would play this for hours is to unlock more costumes and horses. Plus, you can unlock Wild as your final playable character, but again, he wasn't even that fun to me. For the die-hard musou fans, you know the deal with these kind of game modes. But for anyone who just cares to see the story and play as your favorite characters, don't waste too much time with it. The missions can get really repetitive after a while, so there's not too much more to say about that. Berserk and the Band of the Hawk isn't the best Warriors game I've ever played. It does a decent job of adapting newer parts of the story, but getting through all the battles gets boring after a while. If you do want to experience the Berserk story, this is an okay way to do it, but nothing comes close to the original manga. I wish I could even say that this is the best Berserk game out there, but there's still more that I haven't got a chance to try yet. I'll just say that if you really want to play this, try finding it on sale. It's almost always $60, but I can't say I recommend spending all that. Hopefully, one day FromSoft will get the rights to make their own Berserk game, because that would end up being amazing. Like, damn near every Dark Souls game is already inspired by it, so it only makes sense. But what do you guys think about Berserk and the Band of the Hawk? Let me know all your thoughts about it in the comments. Subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you all in the next video.